Good morning and happy Sabbath to everyone who's watching LLBN His Word this morning. Good morning and happy Sabbath.
Good morning and happy Sabbath as well to you and all our friends out there.
We're glad that you're with us today, and I'm sure you are too. A lot of blessings here today. Let's just dive right in to what we have today. We have instead of the usual church service sermon, it is a celebration of Black History Month that is happening at University Church today.
Wonderful.
Some special speakers and music. And then following that at 2 o'clock this afternoon is LLBN Worship with Pastor Dan Smith. His topic today is deep and wide. And then this evening at 6:30 p.m., Christian Connections with Dr. Gigi Noval. And her topic, is it okay for you to be a vegan? This is not exactly a sermon. It is a health I wouldn't call it a lecture as such. It's a presentation. Fantastic, interesting.
And educational.
Very educational. It's going to make you want to hear more from her. And actually, to hear more from her, you can go to LLBN.TV and go over to Smart Lifestyle TV, and there's a lot of information in there that is going to change your life.
For the better.
Absolutely. Now, coming up Tuesday, Christian Connections Live, 6 p.m., we have Pastor Harold Zapata. And if you haven't seen Pastor Harold Zapata, you haven't been watching LLBN.
That's true.
And so those are what you have coming up. Now, we're going to skip ahead a little bit to the first weekend of March, which will be a special weekend for Loma Linda, for all of the viewers as well. There will be a special Friday evening Vespers that we'll be carrying live at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And this will include mission stories, a lot of information from graduates of Loma Linda from around the world.
So this will be live following Dan Smith
This
worship
is
program.
Exactly following Dan Smith's program,
So we have two
which
lives.
will also be live.
So two
yes,
lives, back to back.
This will be back-to-back lives, and this will be an hour and a half long. Then Sabbath morning, the Sabbath services will be all centered around that as well. Again, some fantastic stories, basically going back to the mission of Loma Linda, why it was founded, back when it was founded over 100 years ago, and how that mission is carrying on today around the world.
Now, we've known this under a different name before, or is this?
APC.
That's what I thought, okay.
And now there is still an APC, but that now falls under Loma Linda University Homecoming.
Right.
It's a part of it.
Now, for locals in Loma Linda, LLBN will be exhibiting at the APC.
Sunday and Monday.
So you can come out and meet some of our folks.
That's right. And if you're from out of town and you're here visiting for the weekend, be sure and come up to the exhibits. We would love to meet you and hear what your favorite programs are, what you would like to see, what your favorite music is.
And if I may add, if they happen to be here on Monday following APC, we will give tours for anyone to come and see our facility on that day on Monday.
And we would love to have you here in our facility here for a tour that day.
Of our studios at
That's
LLBN.
Right. So put that in your calendars, mark it down. Well, Ganem, our sponsors.
Key players of our ministry survival.
Absolutely. And our sponsors for the live hours today are the Pulido family from California, the Giordano family from Texas, the Shore family from Iowa, and the Herber family from Arizona.
Oh, praise you, folks.
Thank you so much for being a part of this ministry, for keeping this network going.
Yes.
And of course, all throughout the week, twice an hour, every hour, our sponsors' names come up.
That's right.
So if you are a donor, your name will come up, and we look forward to seeing that. Well, Ganem,
Yes, sir.
we have a special discussion
Yes.
coming up here. I'm going to hand this over to you.
And folks can pick up on this discussion when watching the Christian Connection repeat
Yes.
this evening at 6:30 p.m., I
6:30
believe,
p.m.
on Christian Connections. But we all have fear. There's a natural fear when you're about to get into an accident, and your defense mechanism kind of protects you and make you step back or remove your hands from near fire. And that's very natural.
Self-preservation.
Right? Exactly. And there's fear that is just wrong. A fear of the unknowns, fear of what if, and what if, and what if can just keep growing into all layers of fear. Fear upon fear. Fear and you get audited, fear and someone at work, fear and anxiety about work, or someone you're dating or you're about to date. I mean, it can go on in so many ways. And fear is not natural. It is not from God, because it tends to separate us from God.
It's actually fundamental to a lot of really bad things.
Yes,
I mean,
it is.
A lot of anger.
That's right.
And anger issues are based on fears.
And it builds up.
Abuse that
Right.
happens in the home and so forth. A lot of that is based on fear.
Well, and sometimes fear is unfounded. Sometimes fear is just a state of mind of suspicious or just over worrying, and that just becomes put our feelings in knots and scares us. And that isn't from God. And I'll tell you why, because I did my own research in the Bible to see what God talks about fear. And as we see the fear in the eyes of this beautiful cat, I hope none of us will ever caught with that kind of a look as we face fear.
Yeah.
The human race faced fear from the very beginning of Adam's first sin, when God was seeking him in the garden. And all through history, people saying, but I am afraid, or I'm anxious, especially the young people. And it's sad because, again, it solves nothing, it helps none, and it only complicates matters. God said, fear not. He said that in many, many places in the Bible. As a matter of fact, we'll talk about at the end how many places in the Bible it indicates that God tells us not to fear. But often appears in the Bible in many places. It is a message of comfort. God telling us, don't worry, don't fear, don't scare yourself. I am with you. He encourages us. He encourages people, you, his children, at all times. God is not God of fear. So fear, we know, doesn't come from God. The God of love and order created us in his image. And you know what, Daryl? If we're created in his image, that means God fears. But God does not fear.
No, he doesn't.
God does not fear. Therefore, we shall not fear. Again, there's the defense mechanism when you fear something's going to hurt you. Make you turn around and run the other way from the situation. But there is fear of just playing with our minds. I've always said something that Satan can maybe not break my leg, but he can play with my emotions. And if he can play with my emotions, then fear comes along, suspicious comes along, hate, resentment. It's a package of so many different things.
Far more dangerous than a broken leg.
That's correct. And God gave us, he did give us many gifts of senses, smell, hearing, so many different ones. And the fear to protect ourselves in fear from danger. But again, it's not to live in fear and fear life itself. So we know the angel Many places in the Bibles, they appeared to many, many of God's people. Mary, the mother of Jesus, the angel said, do not be afraid. And he came to Joseph in a dream and told him exactly the same thing. Don't be afraid. And then John, the Baptist's father, Zechariah, also was told by the angel, do not be afraid. When Jesus was speaking to the multitudes in a sermon on the Mount, he said to them on the hillside, don't be anxious about anything. I mean, that is from God himself directly in instruction to all of us who were living then and those of us living now. Don't be anxious about anything. And that takes mindset, training, spirit discipline, and we need to work on that to protect ourselves rather than to go into a dark end of things, but to live healthy and well. Daryl, you want to read that for us?
To the apostles out on the sea in the storm, when they were scared to death, he said to them, do not be afraid. The apostle Paul, at one time in his life, undergoing real difficulty, and God said to him, do not be afraid anymore. You know, I'm seeing a pattern in here. It is trust God. Don't be afraid.
Right.
Put him
That's
in
right.
charge,
That's
and then what is there to fear?
And he's telling Paul, and Paul, God's beloved servant, Jesus spoke with him on the road to Damascus, appeared to him and blinded him, and then regained his vision, and he became the anchor for the church, spreading Christianity into many places of the world. He had anxiety. He was just as human as any of us, and we are just as human as he is. Yet he felt, obviously, he had fear, he had anxiety, and as he tells us in his writings, not to fear, because God has told him not to fear, not to worry about anything. And we'll try to wrap it up here. Daryl, you want to read the other one?
Yes. John the Revelator, John who wrote Revelation, at the vision of the Lord Jesus Christ, and he falls on his face, and he's petrified in the presence of Jesus, as would be natural.
Right.
And what did he say to him? The Bible says, he walked over and touched him and said, do not be afraid.
That's right. He reached over and touched him. And that's the beauty. God comes in peace to us, in love, with promises of encouragement. He is the same God who promised us the everlasting life, a life that we will feel no pain, no sorrow. He's not about to give it to us here on this planet. So don't fear, as Daryl said, trust. It's all about trusting in God. Isaiah 41:10, again, do not fear, for I am with you. Who is that with you? The Lord himself, the creator of all things, who's able to change everything and everything around us. 2 Timothy 1:7, for God gave us a spirit, not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. And self-control helps us to self-control ourselves also from fear. 1 John 4:18, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. For fear has to do with punishment, and whoever fears has not been perfected in love. You hear that, folks? What a beautiful it's been packaged for us in very, very few simple words and verses. The Apostle Paul again said, do not be anxious about anything, and anxiety is simply fear of the future. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with faith. And he says, let your requests be made known to God, and for that same reason we shall not fear. Folks, there's 100 verses about fear not in the Bible, and there are 365 other passages, Daryl, I found out, where God was given an assurance, Jesus was given an assurance about things where we should not be worried and afraid. So on this Sabbath day, I hope this helps you to rethink about fear not.
And just keep trusting him. Thank you for being with us today, and continue to be blessed by what you're watching here on LLBN, His Word. See you next time.